Most small businesses feel like HR is something that they'll get into later. They're going to deal with it later. And then later comes, and it looks like a lawsuit or a resignation or a conversation they had no idea was coming. And now all of a sudden, here's HR and we need to deal with it. So that's why I'm launching a new series today. And it is focused on the 13 HR foundations. We're going to be digging our way through each one by one. So that way, if you listen to this entire series, then you are going to have a great understanding of what your HR foundation could and should look like. But before we get into it, I want to let you know I've got a free resource out there. It's the employer responsibility checklist. We're going to get more into it in this episode today. But if you go to saltandlightadvisors.com/employer responsibility checklist, you'll be able to find that there. Free resource. You can download it, and that will help you work through with this content. So grab it. I'll put it in the show notes as well. So who is this for? I am talking to any business owner or operator that is focused on HR themselves, or maybe they have an office manager. They do not have a dedicated HR team in general. Or maybe you're a green HR person and you're just trying to learn a little bit more HR. This is going to be really helpful for you. And the beginning of what I'm talking about, these first 4 episodes in this series, all of these are covered in my book, The HR Easy Button. You can pick that up on my website, or you can go to Amazon. I've got Kindle. I've got a hard paperback, soft paperback, hardcover, paperback. How about that? And so you can go grab those if you're interested. I have poured my heart and soul into those. I've got 2 more books that I've already written that I'm going to be putting into publishing that covers it. But here's what we're getting into today. HR is not a department. It's a responsibility. And so many people tell me, we don't have HR. And I'm like, okay, you don't have an HR department. And I get that, but you do have HR. The moment you hired your first person, you took on obligations that most business owners don't even really know exist. That's not a criticism, but nobody is handing you the manual, right? This is exactly why I wrote my book. This is exactly why I started my business. And that's why I'm doing this series too. I did a speaking engagement last week down in Southern Missouri to a group of HR pros. And I was talking about getting away from firefighting and getting to strategic HR. And it just reminded me, even a group of HR leaders really need to get into these basics, the operational basics of HR. The t-shirts and the happy hours, they come later. You have to have the foundations built first. I was at an organization one time that gave away so much swag and did so many parties. And you know what? People would come to, I was the HR director at the time, and they would say, I just want to get freaking paid. You can save all your t-shirts. And if they average $15 a t-shirt, and I get at the time, you could get 2 t-shirts a month, do the math, like just give me that money in a bonus. And that's when I knew we had a major cultural issue. So if you don't want to get the book, you're not ready for consulting, but you want a little bit more than a free checklist, I do have an online course. It's called HR Foundations. I'm going to have 3 different courses. The first one covers these basics. So employer responsibility, the baseline of like an HR audit, hiring, onboarding, and a little bit of law. And so if you want to do that, you can go to saltandlightadvisors.com/HR Foundations. It's under $400. It's 4 modules and downloadable tools and resources that go along with all of those. I'm telling you, it's good. Okay. So there's 4 different buckets. When I think of HR, there's 4 different buckets I put those in. And most generally people are going to say like culture and training. No, that ain't it. That's not the way I see it after doing this for 20 years. I look at it from an operational lens because this is really how we move the needle. So I'm going to walk through my way. My way of HR, you do your way of HR, but this is my perspective on it. Bucket number 1 are the foundational systems. That's what we're launching into today. That's what we're talking about. Your employer responsibilities, your overall layout of your HR function, hiring, onboarding, policies, and compliance. So this is where we start an engagement. Like if somebody's working with me and partnering with me, I start every engagement right there. If the foundation isn't solid, nothing built on top of that's going to hold. We can put the fanciest HR payroll technology or whatever in place, and it's just going to be like putting lipstick on a pig. So we start here at the foundational systems. A lot of people have these thrown together. They exist, but they're thrown together. And so then they get stuck in the operational systems, which are next. So that's bucket number 2. are my operational systems. And this is where I see most HR people or office managers spend their life, or small business owners. So they didn't build out the standard operating procedures or the processes for the foundational systems, which was hiring and onboarding, our policies and our compliance. But what we do, because we didn't build those out, is we get stuck in these operational systems. This is compensation. This is classification, exempt, non-exempt, W-2, 1099. This is leave management. There's a ton of different types of leave, and you've got your state versus federal, and then your benefits type of leave, performance and feedback, and then discipline and documentation. That is where we usually end up spending all of our time. And this is where we put out a lot of our fires, right? This is where we live. And so I'm excited to get into that once we get through the foundation. The foundation has to be built. So we've got the foundational processes, we've got the operational piece, and then we get to the strategic piece. This is where we really want and need to live. This is where we start making a huge impact on the business. However, we can't start there, or it feels like things are falling on deaf ears. These are things like workforce planning, leadership development, culture and engagement, and then all of your HR metrics, which we should all be measuring. We should all be measuring. And let me just throw this out there just for a little fun, little preview for metrics, because most people are going to be like, I could give a crap about an HR metric. How many people left you in the last year? Did they leave you in days 0 to 30, 30 to 90, 90 plus, 6 months plus? And was there a particular manager, team lead, supervisor that they were leaving? That data tells a story. And if you're not capturing it, you probably have some anecdotal, like, I have people tell me all the time, we don't have a lot of turnover here, just maybe 1 or 2 people a year. Okay, well, over the last 3 years, if you average 2 people a year, when do they leave? Because I can figure out, is it a hiring issue? Is it an onboarding issue? Is it a manager issue? I can give you a ton of ideas around that, and then where to address the problems if we know the data. But that's a soapbox that I could just preach on. So most small businesses never get there. They never get to that really strategic piece because they get caught up in the operational piece. And let me just run through those first 3 sections again. The foundational systems, that is what you're responsible for as an employer and the overall HR mindset. It is your hiring, your onboarding, your policies, and your compliance. That second bucket are your operational systems. And this is where we usually get hung up. This is compensation, classification, leave management, performance and feedback, and then disciplinary actions and documentation. It's usually where we live, where we get stuck. Those are the operational systems. Because think, this is how you're operating. The third bucket, strategic systems. These are our HR metrics. This is our leadership development, our workforce planning, our culture and engagement. So those are the first 3 buckets. And then the fourth bucket, this kind of is like an overarching, in my opinion, it's the infrastructure. So it's your HR systems, it's the HR payroll technology that you're utilizing, it's your tools, your workflows. So the tech and the systems that hold everything else together, that's bucket number 4. I'm putting that at the end of the series, but it is important. And it is generally one of the first things that comes up when I'm talking to a prospective client or I'm doing an HR audit is, what's your HR payroll technology? Okay, it's pieced together, or we are paying a bucket load for a Paycor, Paycom, ADP, what have you, but we're not using half the modules. Like, such a common story. Those tech vendors even know that's a common story. They're not doing a lot to help you with it. No, I would say there are companies that are getting better at that. There are companies that price in a more affordable way for what you're actually going to use. Like, they are coming forward, and I'll just throw out like Gusto's kind of your basic plan. It's a good one. It's solid. I've got a code on that if it would be helpful for you, but it's a good, like a basic place to start. If you're not wanting to pay out of QuickBooks anymore and you're a small business, Rippling is up and coming. And I've got a new partnership with them. And yeah, that one's exciting. They look at things in a different way and love that. But one of the longest standing partnerships that I've ever had is with an organization that is essentially the front for Kronos Group, UKG. And that's a big tool. It's kind of like an ADP, but this company who I partner with, and I've placed a lot of clients with them. I've actually been a client of theirs years and years ago. They have a team that works with you instead of putting you on a hotline or saying like you need to go take these online courses and figure it out. They have a team that actually supports that, and that is a differentiator. So you can have the coolest tool, but having an organization that actually helps you build it, and then when you have a question you can call them. This isn't like hopping into customer success where you hope you get a person, they email it. Like, it's not like that. So that's a really cool process, and I'm happy to talk to you about that tech too. So we've got the 4 buckets. We've got our foundational systems, our operations systems, our strategic systems, and our infrastructure. And that's really what we're going to get much more deep on. I want to say over the next 13 weeks, but I'm also going to, as always, going to be sprinkling in some interviews. So it's going to take longer than that. It's going to be a long series, but I'm telling you, you could either keep ignoring this in your business and hoping that it goes away, or you can dive into this with me, walk through this. And over the course of these episodes where I'm tackling the whole infrastructure of HR, my hope is you listen to an episode, and then afterward, maybe you even pull down the transcript. And what you can do, like from YouTube, you can pull down my transcript and maybe place it into OpenAI and say, this is what I learned today. I operate in the state of Missouri. I have 28 employees. I am in construction. That's the industry that I'm in. Help me apply this to my business. That would be a great place to start. Or, if you're like, geez, all this did was remind me of what I need to do, like holler and we'll get together. I'll do an HR audit and we'll get going. But my goal is out of doing these episodes is that you feel more confident to take a step forward in your own business. And that's really my hope. So today, let's jump into the HR mindset, and namely your responsibility as an employer. So many employers that I talk to, so many clients that I run across, they kind of take an ignorance approach. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's kind of like, well, I don't know this stuff. And it's like, yeah, well, if you get sued or the Department of Labor does an audit and you've misclassified everyone, you not knowing it isn't going to be enough to save you from a fine and back pay. And that's a bummer. I mean, I get it. Like, you can't know everything, but you are starting a business, so you're responsible. When you hire your first employee, it's time to get on the train. We've got to get this stuff figured out. So system 1, before we can build any of the systems, we've got to start here. What does it mean to be an employer? Not just a business owner that has people, but an actual employer. And most employers would like to be an employer of choice and, be a place where people enjoy working. But a lot of times as a small business, we start things out kind of chaotic, right? Because who hasn't? I started my business out chaotic too. But if you don't start to put some method to the madness, then all you have is madness. And sometimes you're fortunate enough to make some money off the madness, but why live in an eternal state of stress? Like, at some point, let's address these things. And so what I want to do is walk through the 6 employer responsibility categories that I created in my checklist. Like I mentioned, saltlightadvisors.com/employer responsibility checklist. But I'm going to walk you through the 6 categories that I put onto there that you need to start thinking about if you aren't already. So the first one is compliance and legal. You might be out of compliance today. Most small businesses are, and you don't even really know where you're out of compliance. So a couple of things that I regularly see: people in your organization don't have clear job descriptions. Therefore, they don't understand what success looks like in their role. They don't know how they're being measured. They don't know how they're performing. And you may be paying them on a salary just because it's easier and that person liked being paid on a salary W-2, but they may be an hourly employee based off of what the Department of Labor says and the Fair Labor Standards Act. So, I would recommend you check that out. That's something that I haven't seen. I said this when I was doing my speaking engagement last week. I haven't seen, whether it's an employer I worked inside of or a client that I've worked with, I haven't seen one that has everyone classified correctly. And I'm not saying that because it's impossible. It's just we take the easier way out, or we let the employee have a preference. Oh, you want to be 1099? Okay. Or, oh, you want to be W-2, but you don't like having to clock in and out? Okay. And that's just not the way it's done. That's just not how we classify. So when it comes to compliance and legal, Did we get their I-9 verified from the very beginning? 2 forms of ID or a passport, driver's license, social security card, or the passport. Did we take a look at that within their first 3 days of employment? Because that's what the law says. And if they don't do it in their first 3 days, then they're sent on unpaid leave until they submit that paperwork, because legally we cannot employ anyone that we haven't verified their I-9. Just that right there. There's just like a bunch of little things that are actually pretty big things that could get your business shut down. And I said in a previous episode that 70% of employers who experience an employee-centric lawsuit never recover financially. I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying this stuff's a big deal. It's expensive. It can be expensive. And trying our best and leading with our heart gets us a really long way in life. But if you encounter a lawsuit based off of, not complying with HR law, trying our best and leading with heart, unfortunately, doesn't get it done. So we've got to take a look at that. Your team is watching how you treat people more than they're listening to what you say about the culture. So this is something that you need to think about. You've got your compliance, you've got your legal. When it comes to people leadership, your people are watching how you operate, not what you say. And so how are you actually operating? Are you being proactive? Are you being professional? Are you living to the values of your organization that you want other people to live to? So people leadership is a big aspect of that. Another is hiring and onboarding. A bad first 30 days undoes pretty much every good hiring decision that you've made. So sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but that's the reality of it. And so being systematic on our hiring process. And one of the things that I said the other day to a client was, you might have a pretty solid, what feels like solid to you interview process, and you've had pretty good luck with it. But if you aren't asking the exact same questions every single time, let's say if you're hiring for the same role and you're not asking the exact same questions every single time, I might be charming in person and easy to talk to, which means I can just really turn it on and turn it off. But maybe another person is not as communicative or expressive or doesn't connect as well on a one-on-one situation. Therefore, I might get hired for the job, even though that person can blow me out of the water from a skills and expertise perspective. And you might say, well, I like to hire people that I actually like, that I actually want to work with. Like, okay, so we just want to have a fun place, but we don't necessarily want to make money. I don't think that that's the case. And so we really want to find people that can hit those skills and abilities and then make sure that we like them, instead of making sure we like them and then hope that they can hit the skills and abilities. We hire them in because we like them. We don't have a good onboarding and training program in place, and then they're not meeting expectations. But gosh dang, they are fun. They are fun to have around. But in a year from now, is it going to feel very fun if you're not profitable? So your hiring and onboarding are huge. If you haven't listened to my previous episode on onboarding, I highly recommend you go back and give that a listen, because I walk through what onboarding actually looks like. Next area is compensation and benefits, and pay inequity doesn't stay hidden. Someone always talks. So just having an intentional structure in place is what I'm asking for, and really what your employees are asking for and your potential new hires are asking for. So let's say we've got 6 people. They all do essentially the same job. And so we benchmark them and we see that, 2 of them are paid at the bottom of the range, one's paid in the 75th of the range, one's paid at the 90th of the range, and then one's actually below the range. If we took a look at their experience and their education, where should they actually fall? And then if you say, well, these are lower bits because they're not performing, let me hear what the disciplinary action process has been looking like. Let me hear what you wrote in their performance review this year, because I hope that conversation's happening. If we've got them underpaid and we say it's because of performance, let's hear about it. And be careful if it happens to be those 3 people on the lower end are all females, are all Black, are all Muslim. Now you got a sticky situation on your hands, friends, because that's probably looking pretty discriminatory if you don't have any documentation. And it could be discriminatory on accident, but not being systematic, not being strategic in your approach about compensation and benefits, dangerous. That one's very, very important. Next is performance and development. And this is, I just want to say, like, the longer that you take to address performance, the harder it is for you to address performance, and the more that it's costing you financially and personally. we sit back and we hope that it gets better, or we get busy and we don't address it, or they get better for a minute and then they're not better, or they have, tough stuff going on their plate, so we don't want to address it. And how we're addressing or not addressing performance is huge. And your top performers are watching you not address performance with your underperformers. And you might think, well, it doesn't negatively impact your top performers, but that's just a lie from the pit of hell. That's not true. That's just something we tell ourselves to feel better. We have to address performance because our top performers who are doing great, we might be paying them great, we might be giving them great perks. They watch you tolerate this underperformance and they judge. They watch you and they judge. And you know what? They should, right? Like, what kind of leader are you? Are you soft? Do you care about performance? You might be recognizing them, the top performers, well, but if you're not dealing with underperformance, your top performers still care. I promise. It's a bummer. Exits and transitions, terminations, demotions, promotions, all of those areas. How are you handling that? What's documentation look like? How you let someone go tells your team a whole lot about who you are as an employer. So doing that with grace and integrity, but also doing it swiftly with intentionality, more impactful than any value statement we'll ever have on the wall. That's for dang sure. So all of this is in that responsibility checklist. I'll link it in the show notes, saltandlightadvisors.com/employer responsibility checklist. It's a lot more in depth than that and more pointed with the questions, but that's around about the topics that we cover inside of it. Just giving you some things to think about inside of your business so you can know, like, okay, what am I doing by design? What am I doing by default? And where do I need to start addressing things? So your HR doesn't become strategic when somebody finally hands you permission. Like, no one needs to hand you permission, but there have been multiple times where I've sat down with the CEO and I've said, why are you handling disrespect? Why are you tolerating this lack of performance? You just can't convince me that it's because you're a sweet person. CEOs are bosses. We get into business because we're gritty and we're tough. We don't usually get into business because it's easy and we're soft. It's a hustle to start a business. And so if you tell me you're not handling performance and you're not paying attention to the foundation of your business because you care so much, that is just contradictory. So you don't need permission to go into this. You don't need an HR degree. I don't have an HR degree. I've got my bachelor's is in business and I've got an MBA, but what I've got is 20 years street cred in HR. And I'm telling you, I have seen this done poorly time and time again. And the person that it impacts the most is you. It makes your life harder. It makes it harder for you to recruit. It makes it harder for you to retain. And it makes it harder for you to sleep at night, honestly. So it starts with knowing what you're responsible for and then what to do about it. So many of us know, we just like innately know in the back of our mind, there are things that we are not addressing. But what are those things? I've had people come to me and say, I know I probably need to work with you. I just don't even know for what. And I'm like, that is perfect. That's why we get into the HR audit, because I will lift that hood up and take a look under there into these 13 areas. It's not that hard for me to go through, and don't feel bad if the answer is, I don't even know if we do this, or we do it, but not well, or we don't have documentation, or we did it one time and we've got a policy somewhere. I don't know where it's at. We haven't updated it since 2017. I hear all those things all the time. I am not going to judge you. I am going to support you, and we're going to get through it. So I made my business Salt and Light. Salt is wisdom and understanding and knowledge. So we're going to have to state reality, but light is hope, encouragement, a path forward. This is all figure outable. If you haven't listened to Marie Forleo, it's all figure outable. We can get in there and we can make an impact, and it's going to make your life easier. And honestly, it's going to start giving you confidence as a business owner. Dang, I invested in this because this business matters to me and I'm making an impact. And I am going to have an easier time holding my employees accountable if they are showing up weak, because I am bringing it now. It's really going to empower you as a business owner, as a leader. It's so exciting. It's so exciting. So grab that free employer responsibility checklist, or you can do my mini HR audit, the free mini HR audit. That's saltandlightadvisors.com/HR audit. If you want to go through the HR Foundations course, that's saltandlightadvisors/HR Foundations. That's a great place to start. Next episode, we're going deeper. On system 1, we're going to get into hiring. We're talking about how to build a process that brings in aligned people. And I'm really excited to get into that. If this gave you a clearer picture of what you're building or what you need to build, subscribe. I'd love it if you'd share it with a colleague or a peer in your industry, whatever. I am here to help and support you. I'd also love if you'd reach out. You can email us at hi@saltlightadvisors.com. I would love it if you would subscribe to the YouTube channel, Apple, Spotify, wherever you're grabbing this. And if you are just listening, give it a watch sometime. Give it a watch. See my face. And I've got this new podcast studio that I set up. I'm loving this new space. I'm loving showing up here. And gosh, it's a lesson in resiliency getting all of this set up. So, which of the 13 systems is going to feel most urgent to you? I don't know. But I would love to hear when I walked through those 4 buckets, which one is standing out to you? I would love to hear from you. Is it the foundational systems, the hiring, the onboarding, the policy, the compliance? Is it the operational systems, which is the comp, the nitty gritty about leave, the performance stuff? Is that where you're getting hung up? Is it more of the strategic side of things, leadership development, workforce planning? Are you doing workforce planning? How do you know when it's time to hire another person? Are you taking a look at other people who are in that role that are similar and how much they're producing and what the variance is? That will help you know of when you need to hire another person. And it'll help you also standardize job descriptions, responsibilities, delineation of duties, what needs to be delegated, so on and so forth, and actually give like a good flow to the role. So that's huge, the HR metrics. And then, of course, your infrastructure, your HR payroll tech, your tools, your SOPs, your workflows, all of that. Which of those areas is a hang up for you? I'd love to hear. And I'd also love to hear if there's something that I can do for you. You're always welcome to reach out, saltlightadvisors.com/contact. But please subscribe to the show. You're not going to want to miss out. And if you are a small business owner and you're listening to this, I'm going to be interviewing small business owners over the course of the rest of the year. So I recorded this in April of 2026. It's going to come out in May of 2026. For the remainder of the year, I'm going to be sprinkling in, let's say, every 3 to 5 episodes, a business owner, and I'm going to talk to them about their HR and their industry. And here's what I know. Everyone wants to tell me that their industry is a special unicorn and especially unique when it comes to people. And you know what? There is nuance and variance in that. And so I'd love to learn more about your industry and tell your story. We can even do some live back and forth on maybe how to handle some specific situations, but what you've learned as a business owner when it comes to the people management side of things, how to bring them on, how to keep them on. What's hard? When do you fire? All of those things. And so I'd love to dig in that with you. If you're a business owner, a small to mid-sized business owner, or you've got a business owner that you think I ought to talk to, I would love to hear that. Make sure to drop a note to me letting me know that so we can get people scheduled. Listen, I know that jumping into HR when you are trying to sell and when you are trying to pay people and when you're trying to make money in your business, I know that can feel like chaos, but this work is worth it. And it'll make your life a little bit easier too. So don't waste the chaos, friend. Enjoy it. Can't wait till next time.